Hello there, I'm Callum and welcome to the EU in Review, where I review the Star Wars Expanded Universe as I experience it. And this time I'm going to be talking about the old Marvel classic Return of the Jedi adaptation, which has 4 issues. And written by Archie Goodwin and illustrated by Al Williamson and Carlos Garzon. The weird thing about this is it wasn't part of the main run, so I didn't review it earlier, because the main original Marvel run just sort of skipped over it and went straight from Han's not here to, oh, Han's back. We're playing cards with Ewoks. Okay then. It's good. It's good. Return of the Jedi is also my favourite movie, I would say, as well, because I do love the original trilogy and I do love the climax of the story, so it's really good. And overall, the plot of this is, well, it's Return of the Jedi. We know the plot, whatever your thoughts are on it, it would remain the same, whichever adaptation you read. And I really love it. I mean, the Ewoks were a good way of... George couldn't do the Wookiees because of the technology limitations, and so they had the Ewoks. I think that was actually done quite well. Imagine Wookiees going along and trying to eat the crew. That would be actually interesting if you just replace the species and none of the other part of the story. Anyway, dialogue, and it's Marvel dialogue, so a lot of the dialogue is taking cues from the movies and that, of course. But the main part is that they explain more. There's a main thing in the comic. They do more exposition and they explain a bit more what's going on to the person that's not watching the movie. I guess it is it's a format, and that always in line, I think, with all of what Star Wars is as far as the Marvel and the movies go. Yeah, pretty much would be similar to my thoughts on the movie, which I haven't done a video on, but eventually I might. That's really cool. Anyway, the pacing's good. Love the pacing, the detail in whatever writing. I do think some things could be more show don't tell in comics, but the continuity seems to be fine. I didn't notice any continuity gaffes in this adaptation between the two forms, like the movie versus the comic. It's a faithful adaptation. It does add in a couple of bits and leave out others though, so I will say that. This will be the more spoilery bit, which of course I assume people will watch the movies if they're interested in hearing about a comic. But if people haven't and want to just read the comic themselves before hearing my thoughts on it, then now would be the time. So issue 1 is titled In the Hands of Jabba the Hutt. There's that one. And I thought it was funny how C-3PO complains and says that Chewie should have gone in instead of them. They are obviously oblivious to the plan that's going to go ahead. And Jabba barks short orders a lot more, I found, in this than he does in the movie. So it's probably based off of an earlier script, which had him barking shorter orders rather than Huttese being a bit more developed as a language. And George actually allowing it to be able to communicate a bit more than just move. Develop a bit more than just the single words. I thought it was funny when Leia as Bosch calls Jabba a garbage bag. It's just hilarious. And 3PO's penchant for embellishment actually helps him in that, because he translates it in the way that isn't as crude, I guess, or as insulting to Jabba. And Jabba says he killed Jedi when they meant something. That's an interesting line that isn't in the movie. And I thought that, I would have liked to see Jabba killing Jedi at one point, if this section of that is true. Would be interesting. The narration says that the Rancor pit is 25 feet deep, and for my Aussie brain, that is 7.62 meters, which is interesting. So it's not actually that deep. I thought it would be deeper. And I thought in the narration it says it's just the Rebo band and not it's the Max Rebo band, which I thought was interesting. And some really, really nice pin-ups they put at the end of each of these issues, which is actually really awesome. And definitely, especially after the Ewoks and Droids comics, the art is great. It was really great to see that the art, I think, has improved from the original run, if I'm remembering correctly. Apart from maybe the couple of really good issues that I thought were great. The Marvel run is about on par with those, so it's got some really good art throughout this. Issue 2 is titled The Emperor Commands. And R2 jettisoned the drinks tray rather than being knocked off 3PO. And I don't remember it being in the movie that it shows that. And in one panel, Boba appears to hold his rifle weirdly, as is of course Boba Fett. And they have different aliens fighting Luke on the barge. It has Luke lose his lightsaber, and the battle plays out a bit differently than in the movie. So he actually loses his lightsaber for a moment and then he gets it back. And the battle just all plays out a bit differently to the movie, which is interesting. I noticed especially that Yoda says Obi-Wan would have told you long ago had I let him about Luke's sister. I don't remember that being in the movie, so it's interesting that it sort of implies in a way that Yoda stopped Obi-Wan from telling the truth, when I think it's safe to say that a lot of it is something that Obi-Wan actually agreed with to do himself. It also says turn back to the good side instead of turn back to the light side, and I think that's a bit odd, especially because I'm so used to the terminology of light side, dark side. And that continues on throughout the rest of this adaptation. And Obi-Wan straight out tells Luke that Leia's his sister rather than Luke himself realising it after he sort of prompts him. So I think that's an interesting difference from the movie as well. Issue 3 is titled Mission to Endor. And it shows the rebellion fleet at Celeste's first, which I thought was cool. And it says Mon Mothma is the supreme leader of the Rebel Alliance. Rather than just being a leader of the Rebel Alliance along with Akbar and Krix Madine and Bail Organa and the others, she's the supreme leader for whatever reason in this comic. Han thinking he's not going to see the Falcon again is interesting. I wonder if that was there as a nod to Harrison Ford wanting him to die. There's a really nice panel in the Executor in front of the Death Star 2, which I like. And it goes straight into more action rather than Han trying to do his sneaky thing, very much like sneaking around to get the stormtroopers. And it doesn't show Leia's interaction with Wicket, which I thought was interesting, because that whole scene with Wicket and Leia when she's crashed off of the speeder isn't there, so I thought that was interesting. There's more varied attempts to convince the Ewoks not to eat them in this comic, which is interesting. And I also noticed that the medicine man that they have, especially now I've read the Ewoks comics, doesn't look like Logray. So the medicine man must be a different Ewok, which I thought was interesting. See, I don't remember seeing Logray at all. It doesn't have Han coming out to Leia after Luke telling her she's his sister. And the lightsaber turned red in the panel where Vader activated it. That's Luke's lightsaber, so I thought that was interesting. And issue 4 is The Final Duel. I thought it's interesting that the Emperor says that he's ordered the destruction of the moon of Endor if the shields go down. I don't think that was in the movie. And Luke actually throws his lightsaber to Vader as like, I'm not gonna fight, here's my lightsaber. And the actually battle was really interesting how it plays out differently like that, because then he reveals that he has a sister and Vader says the whole, if you don't turn perhaps she will. And then Luke gets angry again, and when he does that he uses Force to instantly retrieve the lightsaber from Vader's belt, which I thought was interesting. Luke doesn't throw his lightsaber that bit later either, so instead of it being the moment before his sister is revealed to Vader, in the movie of course it is when he realises that he looks like Vader with the prosthetic hand. He's turning into what his father was when he gives into his anger. They do explain a bit more about how they got the bunker open than I noticed in the movie in my memory. Now, I'm sure a rewatch would refresh my memory on a lot of things, but I haven't done that yet. It's good that they expand some things. It says Lando is a former gambler, and I was like, he hasn't given up gambling. He'd still be gambling. It's just he's also doing his general bits and pieces. And Anakin's last words aren't as drawn out or touching, so I like how they do it in the movie. How it's a much more touching moment, and it actually really adds more meaning to Vader's or Anakin's death. It completely cuts out, I noticed, the Han and Leia romance at the end, because it doesn't even have the kiss between them or anything. So it's disappointing that this adaptation doesn't keep that subplot of the Han and Leia romance throughout the movie, comic, throughout the story. And I thought that they should have left that in, really. But they had 4 issues, so I guess they had to do what they had to do to make up time and give the other things enough space. I flicked through the trade paperback after I read this, and it's more in high definition. But it does lose some of the rustic charm, I thought, compared to the older single issues. So I thought that was interesting. But overall, it's an adaptation of Return of the Jedi. It's got some interesting bits and pieces, some interesting differences, which may have been from the earlier draft of the script or just how they wanted to do it. It was released in 1994, so I'm guessing that's just how they wanted to do it. And it really does, this is the last of the Marvel comics I have left to review. So it's actually interesting to see how different the Marvel comics are to the Dark Horse comics that I've already read. So it's definitely a good thing that I think it definitely was a right step to give the comic rights to Dark Horse, because they could actually give the continuity a bit more attention and tell really good stories within that. Because of course, even in 1994, 3 years after Heir to the Empire came out and Dark Empire, there was that bit of a transition period between Marvel and Dark Horse. They released their Return of the Jedi, and yeah, it just ended up being still not as accurate to the movie. So I think it's a good thing that they go into Dark Horse. So next for my comic reviews will actually be Dawn of the Jedi. I'm going to start my chronological read through of the Dark Horse comic books, as best I can at least, from what I have. So you can look forward to that, and you can subscribe to keep up to date with the content, as long as clicking that bell and all that to get your notifications, as long as YouTube's nice about them. And don't forget to like the video and comment what you think about this Return of the Jedi adaptation as well. Because I enjoyed reading it, but it was a bit like, yeah, okay, it's very similar. So a couple of bits are different, but that's about it. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video. Over.